if you want to paint like your favorite artist, remember these 4 tips. After a year of learning digital painting, I've picked up some important lessons and I want to share them with you. The first tip is experiment with art styles. In order to not get locked into one specific way of doing things and create the same looking art with virtually no improvement, it would be good practice to create variation in your style or the way you do things. Changing small things like how you do shading, the brushes you use, or your sketching method can make your art look more interesting. Look at different artists and see what you like about their art. And if you're lucky, they might even share how they create their art, and so that's an easy way for you to learn from them. Speaking of artists sharing their process, I made a free guide about creating stylized portraits efficiently. You can find the link in the description. Take this painting of mine. It was done with the rendering style of this artist in mind. I closely observed my art reference and looked at how he represented the hard and soft edges, transitions, why there were random scratches here and why there's blur there. I looked at it all and analyzed and applied it to my painting. And now, next time I paint, I may not have this specific way of doing things as my goal, but I can use my new knowledge I've acquired indirectly in my next portrait painting or whatever it may be. The second tip is to cut time on your workflow. So this really means just becoming more efficient. And when you're starting, it's okay to take time to understand things like anatomy or painting a face. But as you progress, you will have the mental freedom to think about your brushstrokes more purposefully, and you'll have the opportunity to cut time on your workflow by observing how you previously have done things and introducing new ways that make completing those things faster. An example for me, painting portraits took time as I had to think about planes and value rather than the overall energy of the portrait. But now, since I've done so many studies, I'm able to prioritize efficiency. By sticking with one layer and simplifying the process, I can do this because I have the proof of concept from before. 3. Prioritize learning value. If you're just starting out, this is something that's really important. You may have the goal of creating these awesome colored paintings, but if you don't understand value, that's not going to be possible. So paint in black and white, get familiar with what you're drawing, and then when you're familiar with it, you can make the transition to color. And the same thing applied when I was trying to learn anatomy. Also, there are artists who exclusively paint in black and white to begin with, and then they turn that into color with different layer modes. So there's even more variety in the options you have right there. Understand most of the learning comes in the first 20%. Now this is the most powerful tip, so use this to your advantage. And that doesn't mean you should just have a bunch of unfinished pieces, but rather keep this in mind when you feel like you're taking too long on a study. The main reason you're doing a study in the first place is to learn something, whether it's lighting or value or anatomy or anything. So if you take too much time obsessing over minute details and trying to make the art look more pretty, just keep this in mind and ask yourself if this artwork is really worth continuing, or if you would rather try it with a different reference, a different pose, and maybe different lighting to learn something new. With that compounding effect of you learning those first 20%, you increase in efficiency, you're able to create more art that's better, and you'll have a more versatile skill set. Of course though, if you're trying to learn something that is specific in the back half of the drawing process, then your goal might be different. So it really depends on what you're doing. But most of the time, the learning comes in the first 20%.